Hey guys, welcome to The Strong Young Man. Have you ever stopped to consider that you have unresolved issues from past traumatic experiences? Could you consider the possibility that these unresolved issues are buried so deep within your unconscious that you aren't even aware of them? Many of us don't even stop to consider these things, but the unconscious dictates our behaviour on a daily basis. Past trauma is the fundamental cause of all our repressed desires, social anxieties, and insecurities that form the model of our behaviour. If you have issues that lurk deep within your unconscious, they will continue to impact your success in life, negatively affect your happiness, and will inhibit your ability to maintain relationships. These repressions will continue to plague you for as long as the trauma remains unconscious. Acknowledging and accepting the existence of such trauma is the first step to healing wounds that are decades old. Healing these wounds will foster professional success, increase your happiness, and will improve your relationships. Everyone has trauma of some sort. Denying this is denying humans' ability to make mistakes. Your life is not and has not been perfect up until this point. Unless you have done significant personal development, it is very likely that you have issues that you need to resolve. The most traumatic issues are formed around our experiences in the years when our myelin is being generated, in utero to about 5 years old. Even just thinking about your youthful social threats is more painful because we experience them with a vulnerable young limbic system rather than a leafy adult cortex. You need to confront your psychological repressions and explore your unresolved issues so that you can resolve them rather than resist them. The unconscious aspect of the mind has control over us, proportional to the degree that our traumas are repressed. Denying the existence of trauma will only thicken the unconscious aspect of the mind, making the problem worse as you age. Upon facing a crisis, a conflict, a challenge, a loss, or when the ego is threatened, unresolved repressed trauma will cause you to feel pain on a deep unconscious level. In this moment, the pain may become unbearable for anyone to tolerate. Rather than experience the pain, the unconscious aspect of the mind seeks to protect itself and will employ a psychological defense mechanism to minimize the pain felt. This psychological defense mechanism can manifest in many forms, but the most common forms are aggression, anxiety, acute fear, discontent, defensiveness, vehement denial, or projection of the unconscious behavior. The unconscious aspect of the mind can also be played out in dreams or at other times when we are in an unconscious state. To gauge the level of your own psychological repressions, look to see how you react to a crisis, a conflict, a challenge, a loss, or when receiving critical feedback. Bring to light these unconscious tendencies through reflection. Repressions will limit your ability to unlock your full potential professionally. Repressions will cause the ego to become anxious or intimidated by challenges. This will inhibit your ability to achieve personal and professional success as you become unable to rise to the challenges thrown at you. Look to see how you deal with life's challenges. Are you incompetent? Do you find yourself being anxious at the thought of a setback? Do you become excessively aggravated when you experience a minor hardship? Do you become paralysed by fear of a new challenge? People with a healthy relationship to their unconscious will approach challenges with a positive attitude, whereas the repressed will turn the challenge into an apocalypse. The repressed will draw out the suffering, claiming that they were victimised. Irrational people also become aggravated and defensive when their actions or decisions are challenged. Emotional people are not capable of introspection and are not open to learning new things, which will limit their ability to acquire knowledge. This deficiency will contribute to more mistakes in the future. More mistakes mean an increasing tendency to become defensive, a self-fulfilling prophecy. It will also trigger insecurities in the people around you, which is the single biggest barrier to career progression. Often repressed people will excessively deny or combat feedback when it is given to them. This serves to protect the ego from damage. Denial means that the attack is invalidated to the repressed person's mind, and therefore is exiled into the unconscious. Watch out for vehement denial emerging from within yourself, and analyse its cause until it becomes conscious. Don't exile it further into the unconscious through denying the denial. Further denial of the unconscious will only bury it deeper, further limiting your ability to unlock your full potential. Repressions will also limit your ability to achieve a state of happiness. Another indication that you harbour a large degree of psychological repression is that your ego will become dismissive or defensive when it is under attack. Look deep within. What are you defending against? Most likely, it is a primal fear generated from a past trauma. Repressions will cause you to become aggressive, desire revenge, and feel hate towards people. You will never reach a state of inner peace because your unconscious will always be in alert mode, actively defending against the potential pain from the repressed trauma. This is exhausting for the body, and it will continue to plague your happiness until a time that it is resolved. Observe the many ways in which unease, discontent, tension, and defensiveness arise within you anytime you feel pain or anger. Bring the reason for causing this pain into the forefront of your mind to dissolve the pain. Becoming conscious allows you to disidentify with the unconscious aspect of the mind, which can allow you to reach a higher state of being. Repressions will also annihilate your relationships. When we experience a past unconscious trauma, even slightly, we will generally communicate this hurt as anger. Other people in our lives cannot see this, and so they feel personally attacked. This creates cascading misinterpretations, which can annihilate even the strongest relationships. Your unconscious past trauma is permitting a behavioural leakage to emerge in the present. Anger or aggression is one of the ways in which trauma can plague your relationships, but by far the most damaging form is projection. When we try to resist feeling something painful, we often project that very pain that we are trying to avoid. Projection is an unconscious automatic process whereby something that is unconscious to the subject transfers itself to another subject. The projection projected onto the new subject now belongs within that new subject's subconscious. Continuous projection of issues is a prescription for continuous suffering for everyone. Understand that your projections cease the moment the matters that cause the projection become conscious. Failure to do this will cause leakages to be projected onto friends and family, which will then pass the issues on to the next generation. Traumas do not sleep, even with death, but rather continue to look for fertile ground of resolution in the children of following generations. Failure to resolve your unresolved issues will mean that you perpetuate these issues down to younger family members, and they will in turn pass them down to their children. It is highly likely that most of your issues were passed on to you through your parents' actions in your childhood. Rather than widening the tear in the cultural fabric, you should aim to sew it up. Your future generations are counting on you. While all of these problems can be resolved through personal reflection, I highly recommend exploring these issues with a professional, even if only for a short time. I myself initially sought the help of a psychiatrist to help me resolve unresolved traumas from childhood, but I have kept up this treatment to this very day, 14 years later. I see extreme value to these sessions of self-discovery. Understanding personal issues that were created in my formative years have enabled me to sort through these unresolved issues in order to conquer my unconscious. They have helped me to climb up the corporate ladder and have more fulfilling relationships. And the biggest benefit of all, it has fostered my growth into a man. $320 for a 60-minute session and worth every cent. I have spent over 400 hours gaining a better understanding of myself, and I wouldn't be who or where I was today without it. If you have unresolved issues, don't be so foolish to believe that you're above helping. No one is above helping. It is extremely difficult to resolve these issues yourself. It's very difficult to analyse the darker aspects of your psychology because you are a conflict of interest to yourself. You become like a jar of jam, trying to read your own label from inside the jar through the substance. Most traumas lurk deep within the unconscious, and your mind will try and protect itself by repressing the trauma upon analysis. It is far more effective to seek professional help, someone who is trained and will analyse you from an impartial perspective, rather than you doing this for yourself. The world's smartest minds still need help. Doctors will always need doctors, and lawyers will always need lawyers. Also, understand that you cannot analyse yourself in a moment where your mind is in a defensive state. Your mind will hide the painful aspects from consciousness during this time, especially if you have a lot of trauma. You need to explore the unconscious aspect of your psychology during a time where you are relatively stable. If you are going to seek professional help, the best thing you can do is to be upfront and tell the truth. Don't try to hide anything from a psychologist. You are only hurting yourself. Our natural response to learning about the issues lurking within our subconscious is to exclude ourselves from susceptibility. It is always other people who are irrational, aggressive, insecure, or defensive. It is human nature to think highly of ourselves. If we lash out, then we seek to justify this behaviour by assigning blame to others or circumstances outside of our control. You must be extremely careful of this tendency within yourself. If you continue to deny and repress your issues further, then cracks in your psyche will begin to appear. Your mind will work to alleviate this suffering by allowing unconscious behavioural leakages to emerge. This only becomes worse as you age. The sooner you resolve these issues, the more time you have to live a life without unresolved issues. You will know when you have resolved these issues because you will have no emotional reaction to any mention of the trauma. When someone can touch on old wounds and it doesn't hurt, this is a good sign that you have resolved your issues. Thanks for watching today's episode. In episode 17, I'll talk about oral health. Subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when it drops. Catch you then.